Let's talk about Donald Trump's tough guy trade stance. It was a cornerstone of his political platform, a promise to shake up the established order and renegotiate deals that he believed were unfair to the United States. A campaign promise delivered with all the subtlety of a monster truck rally in a library. It was loud, brash, and unapologetic, designed to grab attention and rally his base. He vowed to rewrite global commerce, to tear up existing agreements and forge new ones that would prioritize American interests above all else. This was a radical departure from decades of bipartisan consensus on trade policy, using tariffs as his weapon to bring jobs back and make America great again. He argued that tariffs would force other countries to the negotiating table and compel them to offer more favorable terms to the U.S. The message was simple. America had been the world's piggy bank, constantly giving and receiving little in return, at least according to Trump's narrative, and he'd stop other countries from taking advantage, putting an end to what he saw as unfair trade practices that had cost American jobs and wealth. Trump's approach? A high-stakes game of brinkmanship. Threatened massive tariffs, imposing levies on goods from key trading partners like China, Mexico, and Canada. Act unpredictable and force other countries to cave. The goal was to create maximum pressure and leverage to extract concessions. The media went wild, breathlessly reporting on every twist and turn in the trade wars. Markets twitched at every tweet, reacting to the president's pronouncements with volatility and uncertainty. And supporters cheered the disruption, seeing it as a sign that Trump was finally standing up for America. But the global economy isn't a street fight where brute force and intimidation are the only tools. It's a complex, interconnected system, a delicate web of relationships and dependencies. Slapping tariffs on a key partner doesn't just hit them, it has ripple effects throughout the entire global economy. It shakes the whole structure, creating uncertainty and disrupting supply chains, often with unpredictable, counterproductive results leading to unintended consequences that can harm American businesses and consumers. The stage was set for a grand showdown, a battle of wills between the United States and its trading partners. But the script was written by someone who'd only watched the first half of the movie, unaware of the complexities and nuances of international trade. Was Trump holding a royal flush, a winning hand that would force other countries to fold, or just bluffing with a pair of twos? A weak hand disguised by aggressive rhetoric and a willingness to take risks. What did Tariff Man actually promise? That trade wars were good and easy to win. He claimed tariffs would make China pay billions, revive American manufacturing, and eliminate the trade deficit. The vision shuttered factories roaring back, jobs flooding into the Rust Belt, and a balanced trade scoreboard. He insisted tariffs would hurt only foreign exporters, not American consumers or farmers. Even when other countries retaliated, he promised U.S. farmers would be better off than ever. The message, all gain, no pain, a fantasy that sounded too good to be true. The reality, tariffs are taxes on imports, and those costs usually land on American businesses and shoppers. The promise was a political and economic magic trick, but as we'll see, the trick didn't work. The bill came due, and Americans paid it. Enter Mark Carney, Governor of the Bank of England and former head of Canada's central bank, a global finance heavyweight. Carney isn't a politician or pundit. His job is economic stability, not winning votes. He deals in data, not drama, and when he speaks, markets listen. With a bird's-eye view of the global economy, Carney's perspective is rare and respected. While Trump promised easy wins, Carney warned of rising inflation, disrupted supply chains, and declining investment. He was the designated driver at a party where someone insisted everyone could drive home safely at 100 miles per hour. When Carney weighed in, it wasn't politics. It was a reality check from one of the world's top economic minds. Mark Carney, a respected voice in global finance, stepped forward to dissect and dismantle the trade policies being pursued. He aimed to cut through the rhetoric and expose the underlying realities. Carney dismantled Trump's trade bluff with cold, hard facts, not bluster or political spin. He presented a clear and concise analysis, backed by irrefutable data, that revealed the true impact of these policies. First, he explained in simple and direct terms that tariffs are not paid by China, as was often claimed. Instead, the burden falls squarely on American importers. These are the businesses that bring goods into the country, and those costs are inevitably passed on to U.S. consumers in the form of higher prices at the checkout counter. This means everyday Americans are the ones ultimately paying for the tariffs. He highlighted that while the U.S. picked fights and engaged in aggressive trade tactics, other countries, seeing an opportunity, moved to form new partnerships and strengthen existing alliances, leaving America increasingly isolated on the global stage. Its influence diminished. The U.S. risked losing its central role in the global economy, a position it had held for decades, becoming more of a bystander than a leader, watching from the sidelines as other nations shaped the future of trade. Carney also pointed out the chaos and uncertainty that tariffs created for businesses, both large and small. The unpredictable nature of policy by tweet made companies freeze investments, halt expansion plans, and reconsider long-term strategies. This chilling effect slowed economic growth across various sectors, impacting jobs and overall prosperity. The result was the opposite of what was promised. Instead of boosting the economy, the policies hindered it. Finally, Carney noted that a strong U.S. dollar, often touted as a sign of economic strength and a win for the nation, actually made exports harder for American companies, as their goods became more expensive for foreign buyers and imports cheaper, flooding the market with foreign products, effectively undermining the entire tariff strategy and creating an uneven playing field. The administration was, in essence, stepping on the gas and the brake at the same time, pursuing contradictory policies that worked against each other, creating a lot of noise and activity, but ultimately spinning its wheels in the mud and going nowhere. Carney's analysis made it abundantly clear: the trade war was not a strategic victory but a self-inflicted wound that harmed the American economy and damaged vital trade relationships. The facts, as presented by Carney, were undeniably clear and supported by the data, even if the underlying political motivations and messaging remained confusing and muddled. The bluff, carefully constructed and aggressively promoted, was finally exposed for what it was. Carney's critique was backed by hard data. Studies showed American consumers and businesses paid nearly all the tariffs, tens of billions out of their own pockets. The manufacturing revival never materialized. In fact, the sector slipped into recession as tariffs raised costs for U.S. producers. The trade deficit, it grew to record highs as companies shifted supply chains to other countries. The scoreboard Trump obsessed over showed a bigger loss. Farmers, promised prosperity, were hit by retaliatory tariffs and needed massive government bailouts. The cycle: Americans paid tariffs, other countries taxed U.S. goods, and taxpayers funded bailouts. The result: a circular flow of pain, not prosperity. The numbers didn't lie, people did. The trade war left most Americans worse off. In the complex world of global finance, moments of stark clarity are rare. But sometimes, a single statement can cut through the noise and reshape the narrative. Carney's mic drop moment came in an interview. With the weight of the global economy seemingly on his shoulders, he didn't mince words. He called the trade war the single biggest threat to global growth. It was a bold statement delivered with the gravitas of a seasoned central banker. He calmly explained that the U.S., just 15% of the world economy, was wielding a disproportionate amount of influence, and not in a positive way. He went on to say that the actions of the U.S. was causing most of the uncertainty, holding everyone else back. It was a diagnosis that resonated far beyond the financial world. This wasn't a partisan jab or a political statement designed to stir controversy. It was a sober diagnosis, a measured assessment, from a top central banker, a man known for his careful and considered pronouncements. Carney's words validated what economists and financial analysts had warned for months, often drowned out by the political rhetoric, that America's trade strategy, driven by protectionist policies, was in effect economic self-harm, a wound inflicted on its own prosperity. His statement, coming from such a respected figure, gave business leaders and government officials the cover they needed to finally speak out, to voice their own concerns without fear of reprisal. It was a turning point, creating a chorus of credible warnings that could no longer be ignored by policymakers or the public. For the public, often bombarded with conflicting information, Carney's clarity cut through the noise, offering a simple, understandable explanation of a complex issue. It became clear that this wasn't just Trump versus China, a bilateral dispute, but Trump versus global economic reality, a confrontation with the interconnectedness of the modern world. The facts presented so plainly were impossible to ignore, even for those who wished to deny them. The expert consensus, previously debated and questioned, was now undeniably clear and unified. The trade war was hurting America, its businesses, its workers, and the world, disrupting supply chains and stifling growth. Sometimes, the quietest voice, the one that speaks with authority and reason, is the hardest to argue with and the most likely to be heard. Let's grade Trump's trade promises. China paying the tariffs? False. Americans paid. Manufacturing boom? Didn't happen. Factory jobs stagnated, costs rose and supply chains broke. Trade deficit fixed? Not even close. It hit record highs, shifting from China to other countries. No pain for Americans? The opposite. Consumers paid more, farmers lost markets, and manufacturers faced chaos. The evidence is overwhelming. The trade war hurt the very people it was supposed to help. The promise of an easy win became a costly, drawn-out conflict. Tariffs were a tax on Americans, not a victory over rivals. The scoreboard promises zero. Reality, a painful loss. The lesson economic fantasy makes for good slogans but bad policy. The cost was real and Americans paid it. Why does this matter? Because these policies hit your wallet. Tariffs mean higher prices for everyday goods, less money for groceries, gas, or savings. Business uncertainty means fewer jobs and slower wage growth. These are kitchen table issues, not abstract debates. The lesson? Understand the reality behind the rhetoric. Economic literacy matters. Knowing who pays a tariff is vital for every citizen. America. First policies left the U.S. more isolated while other countries built new alliances. Real strength comes from cooperation, not bluster. Ignoring experts like Carney isn't leadership, it's recklessness, and the public pays the price. The story of the trade bluff is a warning. Listen to evidence, not just slogans. So, what's the takeaway? Be skeptical of magic fixes and easy answers. The trade war's promises, easy wins, no pain, were a sales pitch for a faulty product. Global trade isn't perfect, but the solution isn't a food fight. Smart policy means working with allies, investing in workers, and facing reality. Next time a politician promises the moon, remember Carney's calm truth. Tariffs are taxes on you. Ask hard questions. Who pays? What do the experts say? What are the real consequences? Don't be swayed by bluster. Demand facts. Being an informed citizen takes work, but it's worth it. The trade bluff was a high-stakes gamble with America's future. The real takedown is the one you perform. By thinking critically and refusing to get played. The economy isn't a reality show, it's just reality. Good night.